Are EVs better for the environment?
Yeah. So EVs are really good for the environment in the way that we remove emissions from a vehicle. And if we talk about vehicles in general, they come up with a very big engine inside, and engine uses fuel, which is either gasoline or diesel, and that produces a lot of pollutants. And by going zero emission vehicles or electric vehicles, as we call it, we're removing that particular factor out of the cars. And you can talk about how we do that, Patrick.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things to realize when we talk about zero emission vehicles is that there's zero tailpipe emissions. So there's no exhaust from the vehicle, but there are still emissions created when you create the vehicle or the components of the vehicle, and there's also still emissions created for the energy generation. If you've gone coal, you're producing a lot more CO2 in emissions for that energy generation versus if you have a hydroelectric or wind or solar power plant. But generally, I think it's pretty safe to say that electric vehicles and zero emission vehicles are better for the environment, and most certainly in the long run.
Don't EV batteries use cobalt and lithium?
Absolutely they do. But the important part to remember is that a battery isn't consumed the same way a fuel is when we drive a car. So if I put fossil fuels in a tank, in a vehicle, gas tank, and I drive with it, that's now gone and is gone forever. It's in the air. Whereas an electric vehicle does use minerals and rare earths and all these things to make the battery, but at the end of a 20-year lifespan, all those minerals and everything that it's used are still there. So that brings up the opportunity to reuse those minerals because they're still there. We do need to work on supply chains, making things more sustainable for our mineral extraction, but that's going to be true really across all materials, not just cobalt and lithium.
Brilliant. And do electric cars cause pollution?
So as we kind of mentioned in the opening, electric cars do have emissions from the energy that they use to drive around, and often forgotten, and no different than conventional vehicles. There's also emissions from tires. Your tires wear out. Where do you think they wear out to? Little particle matter is all over the roads, and the same is with brake pads. Brake pads wear out, and that is particular matter emissions all over the road as well. So there's zero tailpipe emissions from electric vehicles, but that doesn't mean that they're zero emission.
Okay, but some EVs still produce emissions, right?
So again, there are emissions coming from them, particulate matters particularly, but zero tailpipe emissions from the burning of fuel.
So it is also boiling down to the fact as to how we define an electric vehicle. So when someone generally uses the term electric vehicle, it combines it's a large blanket term that combines a lot of different kinds of vehicles. And there are a few that you can say would have tailpipe emissions. But as Patrick did mention, if you consider a vehicle as a zero emission vehicle, or what we call a battery electric vehicle, yes, that is zero tailpipe emissions.
If you want to see more of this conversation, get in touch with us at fleets@pluginbc.ca, and we will direct you to the entire video and also be happy to answer any additional questions you may have.